Welcome to World Chefs Podcast. I'm your host, Ragnar Fredriksson, and you're listening to World on a Plate. Special thanks to our sponsors, our partners who make this possible, Nestle Professional, Electrolux Food Foundation. Thank you for making it possible. And today, we will be taking the pulse of the hospitality industry with regards to recruitment. So a brand new report has come out. It's coming out tomorrow, actually. It's a report by Hosco, the world's largest community platform for hospitality professionals and a partner of World Chefs. And so I have with me today our friend, our partner, John Lohr, who is the Director of Strategic Partnerships and Innovation at Hosco. And he will be giving us a pre-taste of that report. And so I want to welcome to the show. John, welcome.
Ragnar, thank you. Good to be with you. I wish it could, of course, be in person, but for now, virtual will suffice. Thank you for the invitation.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, and you mentioned it last time we saw that must have been like at the Hosco event in Barcelona, that just before COVID, and so I'm looking forward to repeat that again. Such an amazing
Absolutely. Event. It's on the plan. It's on the plan for September, but of course we have to see what the what situation is by then.
I know, and we can discuss that later. The Hosco community on World Chefs and the World Chefs community on Hosco platform. But what I really found so exciting about that event is that you have all these very like-minded people who are hospitality people, whether they come from whatever age group, whatever origin of whatever part of the world. It's funny how like we have this common denominator, the hospitality gene, the hospitality DNA. And so, it really was a great event. So thank you for that one, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you. We'd love to have you.
Hey, but hospitality Pulse is the name of the report. And can you give us a little bit of background into this report? What is it? How is it conducted? And who is it for? Yeah.
I mean, first off, Hosco, which actually stands for Hospitality Connection. Not everybody knows that. Right. What we are is really a gathering place for hospitality students, alumni, professionals, and employers. And so the platform is designed to connect hospitality talents with hospitality employers and vice versa in the most efficient way. So that means that we have a lot of access to the employers, and we have the privilege to reach out to those employers to gather their sentiment on the most pressing issues that they're facing. So what the Hospitality Pulse is since the start of the pandemic, we started conducting sentiment surveys of hospitality leaders, talent teams, HR representatives, directors, and more. And the idea was to help everyone understand where our industry stands and how to better plan for the future. So we've already conducted numerous hospitality pulses. This, however, is the 22 version. So to start 2022 off with a bang, we thought it'd be very important to share these insights. Most importantly, to have other employers understand what our employers are doing and hopefully benchmark some best practices.
Right. Hey, and before we dig into that, you mentioned it's a good thing you mentioned what is Hosco, because I sort of just jumped in there. I was so happy to see you and all the happy memories. So for our audience who is listening, so Hosco is a strategic partner of World Chefs, and our global community of chefs is run on the Hosco platform. So basically, which means that if you sign up to a World Chefs account on worldchefs.org, you create your account, you will of course receive news and engage with the World Chefs community, but also you have access to all the Hosco member benefits and so access to the community and a global community of, I think now 500,000 or almost 1 million people now, is somewhere in between and growing, and it's free of charge. So I just want people to be aware of that, that link between Hosco and World Chefs. And so this report that you mentioned is one of the advantages we have to get your insights, and it's for our leaders, for our decision making, and it's going to be very interesting to dig into your report and understand sort of how things have changed, because you've been doing this now for over the whole COVID period, really, and sort of what is the change, what are the trends, and so maybe John, maybe you can talk about sort of the main key findings that might help leaders in their planning and decision making when it comes to human resources, etc.
Sure. This report was designed to be short but insightful. So we didn't want to go into this massive research on what everyone's facing, because we needed simple, digestible points that each employer and each talent could understand and basically take to themselves on how to adjust to the situation we're in. Yeah. So basically what we have is how have the employers been affected by the global pandemic? Essentially, how has COVID-19 affected their earliest hiring plans, for example, the winter season? Then we talk about the variant effect. Are they worried about new variants coming out? And then we talk about the key priorities they have over the next quarter, so Q1 of 2022. We also asked them about if they're hiring interns or not, which was a funny question, but we actually found that a fair amount were not. And we felt that that is the most immediate answer to staffing issues, is hire interns, because students need internships. They're well trained from the schools. And of course, the employers need those talents. And then we talk about getting back to somewhat normalcy. We talk about when do you plan to expect hiring to come back to full levels of normality regarding headcount. So if you like, I can share some of those statistics, or we can just discuss each point.
Yeah, I mean, any striking findings that you want to share with us? I saw a little glimpse there, and one of that struck me is that, like, the real concern in the industry today has to do with recruitment first, and then after that, all sort of human resource, personnel engagement, their health, their well-being, their happiness, etc. Well before profits. Isn't this a change before COVID?
I think we've had a little bit of a wake-up call, and there are always sort of silver linings to every crisis. And employers have realized that without people, without good people, they can't make profits. You cannot just keep trying to focus on the bottom line without focusing on your people. And so that is why in this report, 67% of the employers surveyed said recruitment is their number one concern. 56% said workforce engagement and productivity. And what that simply means is we need to find people and we need to retain people. Because if we don't have people, we cannot operate. Right. I mean, we've had situations in Europe where entire establishments or departments have just shut down, not offering lunch services, not offering dinner services, because they don't have the people. And that, more than anything else, has a direct effect on the bottom line. And the employers know that.
Yeah. Have you had any sort of more in-depth of, like, what are companies doing to especially retain or attract and retain, but what seems to be sort of the approach to address this issue?
Well, what's funny is when we did these surveys a while back, we saw that something like employer branding was a high priority for employers, which makes a lot of sense, because our audience on Hosco is hospitality students, alumni, and professionals. And it's not enough just to say, go find a job. The talent is thinking, where do I want to find that job? What is the DNA like? Who will be working with me? And all that reflects into employer branding. However, on this survey, it was one of the lowest priorities. And I think that might be a bit of a mistake, considering the audience who participated, because employer branding drives recruitment. Yeah. So it's something that we at Hosco are also trying to reinforce to the industry. And in fact, we just had a rebranding at our company, which now our mantra is make hospitality an exciting journey. Because we want to go away from just get a job, just pay the bills, to this, as you said, it's a common denominator, it's a community, and it's a very exciting career. Yeah. So take that onto the employer side. They need to show that we don't just need you to make money, we want you, right? So what does that mean? That means double down on the employer branding. It also means double down on the benefits, especially training. What we have found is there's a huge demand for employers now to provide quick, efficient, high-level training to new employees. Yeah. And that makes all the sense in the world. It's a benefit, so the employee knows they'll be taken care of. And it's also a tool to make sure that they deliver the highest level of customer service. And so on our end, what we've done is we partnered with Lobster Inc., which is one of the world's largest provider of online training and training platforms. And now, this is actually quite new, kind of announcing on your show, if you will, we're for the first time ever going to be able to allow small, medium-sized businesses in Europe to adopt Lobster Inc. training. This is the same training that the Marriotts, the Hiltons, the Kempinski's use, that the small businesses can now have. Why are we doing that? because exactly to the point of the survey, we want to help them attract people and retain people.
That's great news, actually, because of course, I mean, we know how small scale industry restaurants are working on very low margins at times, and sort of really from a month to month basis, and trading just gets left behind, is dropped, and so I guess what has happened in the last over the last years is that online element, that online being accessible for everyone everywhere at any time, has really taken off, hasn't it? When it comes to training and giving access to yeah.
That's an excellent point. Excellent point. I mean, let's be honest. We still are in somewhat of a conservative industry. And let's say before the pandemic, you would talk to a GM or a director or head chef and said, "Would you like to provide online training to your staff?" The answer is probably going to be, we'd rather do it on site.
Yeah.
But now there really has been an awakening. There has been a catalyst, unfortunately, through the pandemic, but this awakening of saying, you know what, online might make sense, but it has to be done the right way. I do not believe in any way that a person can learn specific skills 100% online. That is false. You need to have your tools in hand. You need to be in the hotel. You need to be with the guests. But online can be a fundamental learning tool. It can provide a basis of understanding. And if that basis already allows the employee to come into the property operating at a higher level, then everyone benefits.
Absolutely. Hey, I just another thing you mentioned. I wonder if that, like we noticed in your survey, the result is that the key concern is how to attract and retain talent, and while very low on their investment is the employer branding. So it's like they are concerned, but they're not doing it, or are they doing it differently, or is is that they're really afraid of that? They're not able to find people, but then they don't see the interest of branding themselves as a responsible employer.
I think in a lot of ways, and keep in mind who this industry report and survey went out to are not just the big brands. Hosco has a lot of small, medium-sized groups in Europe who are our partners. So it's not just Marriott's, Hilton's, and Hyatt's. It's also boutique companies.
Yeah.
And sometimes those boutique companies just don't understand how to do their employer branding. They don't understand the kind of media to use, the channels to use, or the different content to create. Now, that's of course not a concern with the bigger brands, right? And I think when it comes to just putting dollars to actions or euros to actions, they simply thought, well, let's first double down on recruitment and keeping our people. But employer branding, as I said earlier, goes hand in hand. I was on a webinar yesterday, and it was a professor from Hotel School The Hague. He made a wonderful point. He said, go online to most of the industry websites and look how many pictures include people. How many people are actually in those pictures? Yes, beautiful scenery. Yes, beautiful room. Yes, beautiful lobby. Yes, maybe a couple actors standing there to look like they're checking in. Yeah. But how many people? Now, those websites are always designed for the purpose of attracting the guest, not attracting the employee.
Yeah.
And so on the Hosco perspective, we try to give more of the story behind the hotel, giving the member the ability to see who works at that hotel, see their profile. Wow, there's an alumni of my school currently working at this hotel. Let me reach out and see what it's like. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff that telling the people element, what is it like to work in our hotel from a staff perspective, that I think the employers are really missing.
Yeah. To market themselves as an employer, actually, not just to market themselves as for customers.
That's it. Yeah.
That's a really interesting point, actually. And you do actually. It's good that you remind us that there's a huge discrepancy. There's a lot of fragmentation of different kinds of restaurant hospitality operations, that from a small bespoke to large chains. And do you think that there's a similar situation around the world? Because you mentioned in Europe, we are seeing this situation compared to Asia, Middle East, or the Americas. I think the survey was not in the USA, but it was.
No, it was that's right.
Asian, Middle East, or
No, the vast majority of these respondents were from Europe.
It's European, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if everybody is seeing the same sort of situation when it comes to the stress on recruitment and the tension on the recruitment market.
Definitely. Again, in this webinar I was in yesterday, there was a professor there from DePaul University, and he mentioned that I believe around 12% unemployment in hospitality is what the United States is facing. And that's fairly significant. But another point he made, which I found fascinating, is the ripple effect that gap in hospitality employees creates. People aren't able to go to their favorite restaurant. They're not able to get their service on time. They're not able to book the hotels they like to. And that, of course, makes them a little bit upset.
Great frustration, yeah.
But what he also said is that because he's a professor at this university and he talks to his students every day, is that students are becoming less motivated to work in the industry because of the anger that they can sometimes face from guests. And that kind of gave me an aha moment, thinking, of course, we're always talking about make hospitality an exciting journey, but it kind of needs to go both ways. Of course, back in the day when I worked in the hospitality industry, and now and then, of course, I faced some angry guests. I was taught how to deal with them, but it didn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
Now, because of COVID restrictions and the guests' frustrations, the staff have to deliver the message and the requirements from the management. And oftentimes the guests don't like that.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that students who have friends in the industry speak to those friends and they say, oh, I had such a terrible day. I got yelled at 10 times or 15 times.
Yeah.
And that erodes our vision of saying this is an exciting, this is an open, this is a people service industry. And that's a real big problem, I think. Hopefully it'll go away when the pandemic lessens. But again, it's a two-sided street. If guests want to have services delivered, they need to treat the people with respect and understand that they're just the messengers. They're not trying to ruin their holidays, you know?
Yeah. I guess that is, like as you said, related to that frustration people are feeling during this COVID pandemic with the lockdown and restrictions, and hopefully that's something that will go back to normal. People will go back to being normal human beings and polite.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. God. And so what do we? So I mean, definitely we see people leaving industry, or they were laid off and they just found another job and think, well, I never go back to that, to hospitality. What can companies do? I mean, apart from employee branding is great. I mean, obviously, people want to have a lifestyle. They want to be able to live from their work. They want to be able to enjoy their families. Do we see a change in how to attract people, young people in particular? Do you see a trend in change in what they are actually wanting and missing?
We do, and it happened even before the pandemic, was this concept of the gig economy, flexible work conditions, right? Yeah. And we definitely see that the bigger brands are starting to adopt these. Just the other day, I saw a big advertisement, I think from Hilton, saying now they're allowing for flexible work environments. Something Hosco has even thought about exploring is having these multi-destination management training ideas. Because if you tap into a young person's desire to explore the world, which has been unfortunately suppressed due to the pandemic, what better way to, let's say, enter the industry by having 6 months in this hotel in Australia, 6 months in this hotel in Fiji, 6 months in this hotel in Bangkok. I mean, that fits directly to the millennial interest of one, being valued, and two, exploring the world. Yeah. But that is not easy for a company to adopt. It takes a lot of planning and strategy, but it ticks the boxes of the young people and what they're looking for. And then the second thing, like I said, is flexibility, gig work. We're uniquely positioned in the hospitality industry to allow that. We're not a 9 to 5. We could easily have flexible working conditions, both remote as well as hourly. But again, it's a shift in mindset that is required.
Yeah. Excellent. Exactly. Another surprise you mentioned earlier, and maybe we can touch base on that, is internship. So what do you think? So like people are thinking less, recruiting less internees. Is that, do you think that is because they are hiring full time, or what do you think is behind that? That internships are going down.
It's a funny statistic we found in the report. Of our respondents, 67% said that they usually hired interns and expected to do the same soon. But surprisingly, 33% said they did not hire interns. And that kind of opens the question, why not? With highly skilled and well-educated young people looking to break into the industry, I mean, surely a fully fledged hiring strategy should include interns. And once again, I think it gets down to who we surveyed. Again, big brands, of course, have internship strategies, but some of the small boutique and groups may not. And I'm very well connected with hospitality schools as well as hospitality employers. So we have 450 schools on Hosco. But when I speak to those schools and I speak to the employers and regions, you'd be shocked to know that some hotels have hotel schools in their backyards and don't even know it or don't even talk to them.
Yeah.
And another thing is that understanding that there is a difference between a student who studied hospitality and a worker just looking for a job. And I'm still, on this webinar yesterday, we were discussing what if we brought in international talents from abroad, like Philippines and Malaysia and Indonesia. And as well as I do, that there are world-class hospitality and culinary schools in these countries with world-class talents. But if that talent was to come to Ireland or UK or Germany, they cannot be treated just as immigrant labor. They need to be valued for what they've learned, and also considering that the level that they've achieved, whether it's a bachelor's or a diploma,
Yeah. No, I think really that we had this discussion, John, on one of our webinars or panels about, how do we treat, how are we treating our human resources, and how are we investing in the human capital in the hospitality industry as compared to other industries where, as you just mentioned it, we sometimes treat the labor as a cheap workforce, either students looking for a part-time job or immigrant labor, cheap immigrant labor, while we should be thinking more long-term and investing in the future of our staff to keep them for on the long run. And the connection with schools is very interesting. Is that like some phobia of our industry leaders is to be in that close relationship with the culinary schools, where you actually will find people who are wanting to go into industry, they're going to be motivated. They just need to have that first step and first guidance and mentorship.
Absolutely. There's sometimes tends to be a feeling in the industry of wanting to take on a blank slate. So don't take the student who has learned different skills and traits, but take someone who we can mold for our own. But at the end of the day, what they will learn in terms of core vocational knowledge and skills is going to be pretty much the same in most properties. How to greet a guest, how to set a table, how to pour a drink. These are all fairly simple but common traits and common skills that they can learn at the schools, and then they can take to the industry. After that comes the branding and the unique guests or unique way a guest is greeted at different properties. That I get. But I'm just surprised that they don't realize the pools of talents that are available. Now, I'm not just talking about the typical world-class Swiss hotel schools. Everybody, I think, knows them. But there are literally thousands of vocational schools, even around Europe, who have unbelievable talents. But there's also, again, the two-way street. The employers need to reach out to those schools, but the schools need to encourage those talents to look beyond their backyards. I was once in Belgium visiting some vocational schools, and they were telling me there's a Belgian phrase that basically means around the church, which basically means people study around the church and work around the church. And someone who's studying in Bruges may have great ambitions to go to Brussels, but no further. And that is something where I think World Chefs, Hosco can help influence. We can help influence the schools in saying, even though you are a vocational school, your students can have world-class ambitions. And now, more than ever, the employers are looking for your students and those talents. So expand the horizons. Think about Paris, think about Munich, but also think about Abu Dhabi, think about Dubai, think about Hong Kong,
Absolutely. The world is open up now. You said it, people are recruiting. And I guess that's one of the conclusions as well. When we would have asked the question about 2 years ago, they would have thought, well, right now we're going to be recruiting in 2 or 3 quarters from now or next year. And now they're already there.
They're already there. The report said that 47% of our respondents are already hiring people right now. Yeah. So they are already planning for the season. Because again, what we were frankly a little bit scared about also was when Omicron came up. We thought, uh-oh, here we go, the industry's going to shut down again. But as we learn more about Omicron, understanding that it's highly contagious, but may not have quite as severe effect as the others, the industry basically said, okay, Omicron is a risk, but not as great a risk as we thought.
Yeah.
And it appears that governments have learned that full shutdowns simply cannot happen again.
Yeah.
So let's get back to finding people.
Yeah.
Like I said, summer of 2022 is predicted to be one of the most busiest and successful summers for the hospitality industry. And so right now it's recruitment time. We need to find our people between January, February, March, April, get them trained and ready to hit that summer season. And so that's another reason why in the report, when you look at the question, when do you expect to reach a normal headcount, meaning back to regular pro-COVID operations and team headcount, 27% said by Q3 of 2022. Now that's missing the summer period, but it shows that they're ramping up. 18% said Q2 of 2022. Yeah. And only 16% said Q1 of 2023 and 7% Q4 of 2022.
What's all happening now in the next, like already last quarter and the next 2 quarters, everybody is expecting, 80% are expecting to be back to full capacity.
That's it.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, I guess, that concludes. So to summarize all that, so what are the key conclusions here?
Key conclusions are that, again, based on this report, 47% are currently hiring. So if you are a student or professional listening right now, now is the best time ever to find a job.
Yeah.
And remember, it's not just about finding a job, it's about dictating your conditions. There is leverage that a job seeker can now have, asking for flexible hours, asking for better pay, asking for different benefits, because the demand is high from the employer side. Yeah. But let's also consider that 33% of the employers are less worried about COVID affecting this winter season's hiring plans, but there is still a worry. So into this immediate winter season, where a lot of countries are taking winter break coming up, there's still maybe a little concern over Omicron, as we know, yeah? But 54% of employers plan to reach pre-COVID headcounts by Q3 of 2021. So the doors are open, the recruitment is happening. It's now up to, I think, both talents to, let's say, renew their faith in the industry, as well as for employers to double down on the benefits that they can give these talents.
Hospitality is open for business.
Hospitality is open for business. And the final point I would make there is that let's not just forget that there always has to be a funnel of talents. And where does that funnel come from? Oftentimes the schools. So there are sometimes parents who are concerned about, oh, should I send my son to a hotel or culinary school? But looking at statistics, it is the best time ever to study hospitality or culinary management, because the demand is going to be sky high.
Yeah.
And once again, understanding the difference between a graduate from hotel school and a job seeker, I think the industry is now getting that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, finally, a fresh of breath there for our friends in the hospitality education industry, and another opportunity for them is, as we see that internal training upskilling is on the increase. Well, it's for these culinary schools to also consider adapting to that new market, and not only taking in new students, although that is very important for the future of the industry, but addressing that need for upskilling and in-house training for corporates.
Exactly. Because let's look at the model here. We have the industry saying we need people as quick as possible and hire and train as quick as possible. But the industry sometimes doesn't have the facilities to do so or the tools to do so. Schools do, whether it's through their facilities on site or online training. So there is a direct link that can happen between a school providing, let's call it, outsourced training functions to the potential employees or employees of a hotel. And that makes all the sense in the world. The school can operate both a blended and full-time program. They can reach beyond their traditional students and reach non-traditional or anyone wanting to take a short course. And they put more people in a faster rate into the industry to help for those staffing shortages.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you, John. It's great to have been able to expose these figures, your survey, and And you're right in saying earlier, for the future, for to help our industry to create that community of the global attractiveness and linking education with the employee side, Hosco plays a great role, and Well Chefs, we do play a role when it comes to the culinary side of it. You're on the whole hospitality, and together we work on the culinary side for Well Chefs, and so important programs that we have there is to encourage training and making skills more visible to both employers, to make them their own companies more appealing, the schools to be able to brand their education, and individuals to make their skills more visible. We discussed, our digital credentials and the platform that we're working on to link schools and employers together. I just want to finish to remind the audience that World Chef Congress and Expo is coming up in Abu Dhabi. So that's from 30th of May and until the 2nd of June this year, under the slogan "Rise Together." So it's a message of hope and unity for our profession as we come together finally to meet in person like we used to, and nothing will replace that. So, and this is where we will go more in depth in all these important managerial issues we've been discussing, with the new findings to come, and to cover a variety of issues and problems and solutions for our industry, to keep our members up to date and to give them the tools and to face this uncertain future. And so I hope to see you there, John. We'll discuss and make sure that we get the community, your people together, and we can all give ourselves a big hug and have a drink together finally after all this distancing.
It'd be an absolute pleasure to be there in person with you and with everyone from World Chefs, Ragnar. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you everyone for listening. So I want to say goodbye to John here, and I want to welcome you for the next show in a couple of weeks' time. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and take care. Bye-bye.